We're going. You know what? I'm going to throw this out there right now. I have two of the most positive people in my life in this room with me right now. There's a story to this. Ben, welcome to the Big Fat Podcast.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I like being here. I like seeing you guys.
And Ben, I got to tell you, I've probably told you this story in the past, right? I told you this story about the positive.
You mention things to me every once in a while about being positive, and I tell you what, it's nice to hear, because when people say that, you don't really think that of yourself. You just think, I'm just a guy making it through life.
I wish I had a camera. There she is. April, good morning. I wanted to catch that look on your face. I forget that I can just go right to you when you're quiet. She had a look on her face. Like
I saw that. I was looking over there. I saw the face. It's like, I know why he's doing that.
There's a story behind it.
We were in the trailer one time, and this is way before April and I were a thing. And I was talking, and she was saying to me one time, she was like, I'm a really positive person. She's like, I get told all the time, people tell me all the time I'm positive, and I try to keep things positive and whatever. And I grant that. I was like, she does. And I told her, though, I said, I got to be honest with you, you're number two. You're not the most positive person in the world. And she looked at me like really offended. And I was like, sorry, you're not. You're number two. And she was like so bugged. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, number one, Ben Berg.
Oh my gosh.
He's got you beat.
I tell you what, if there's any competition, I think you're right up there with me. In fact, I think that's one of the things that my wife liked about coming to Big Fat Lunchbox. Don't get me wrong, she loves seeing Milo there, but she said, I really like seeing April because she's always smiling when you come up to that window. So there's nothing better when you're coming someplace in the morning. It's all like brutally cold, and then here she is in front of that window in like 20-degree weather, handing out burritos and helping out Milo, and she's smiling saying, hey, how's your day? And then she asks about you, and she's like, my wife's like, I would close that window.
She'd walk away, huh?
She's like, here's your burrito, it's time to go.
Yeah,
but I agreed with him. I was like, you're right. I can't even.
And yeah, now
I can't even say no, he's not,
because it still comes up now, especially if she's saying something negative. I'm like, there's a reason you're number two.
And the thing about the whole negativity thing is, growing up, I grew up with my great grandfather was from Russia, and so, as you imagine, there's a lot of negativity.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that was one thing I always... Hard people. And that was something I grew up around, a lot of, just people being negative, not a lot of positive. And so that's one thing I always said I did not want. I did not want to be or bring that into being negative all the time. It drives me crazy. Like, things suck, like life can suck, and it makes it worse when you're just sitting there just being negative all the time.
Yeah.
And so that was my little...
I grew up with, my dad was raised by a German father,
German.
So, and they had different tactics as far as like how to raise people and their attitudes. Now, my dad wasn't like the most positive person in the world. So the reason why I'm saying that is I can appreciate what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, that's the one things that being raised by a parent, they do a lot of things right as far as discipline and all that good stuff, but there's also points in your life where you're like, well, I'm going to make sure that I don't do that.
Yes.
Because you want that comfortability where your kids can come up to you and just say, hey, Dad, how's your day going? And not worrying about, what am I going to do wrong, to where I can set off a whole bunch more negativity.
Don't say anything at all. You avoid.
You're right. And not saying that my dad was unapproachable, but you didn't like that feeling of like there was kind of I don't know, you just don't like that feeling of any kind of thing negative.
Yeah.
And so I can see that, for sure. And then that actually will teach you I don't want to be that way. So you guys think that I'm positive. If you have never met my brother Jeremiah, Like, that guy he's been through the ringer.
He's up at the mine, right?
Yeah, he's up at the mine too.
I used to see him all the time, but I never talked to him. Never.
Yeah, he's probably one of the most positive people that I've ever met.
He out-positives you?
You know, I think so. That's just me, though. You know, saying that, and then other people will say, you and your brother are alike. Like, I can't stand the fact that you guys come up the stairs and you both are smiling. It's like, what is wrong with you guys? Don't you hate it here? It's like, dude, there's worse things in life than coming to here every single day. And you know, just glad to really have a job, honestly. And so, and we up there now, man, I'm telling you, I enjoy my job. I like what I do. But there's just so much negativity going on right there, and people just hating life. And Jeremiah and I, we're just up there, we're just smiling fools. We're happy.
You have to be the yin to the yang, right?
Yeah, and you know, and it's not something where I want to like brag about, where I say, yeah, I'm just a happy dude. Well, I am, and it's not that.
Well, you're choosing to be. I know that not everything's easy.
No, absolutely not. And the thing is I came from absolutely nothing. You know, it's not like like these sports stories like Giannis, what they call that guy, the Greek freak that plays for the Milwaukee Bucks, you know, and he literally came from nothing, and now he's probably one of the best basketball players in the entire world. But like for me, you know,
I love that guy.
Yeah, and he's great, you know, and he's a great attitude and he's playing hard. But like for me, we came from nothing, you know, 8 kids, you know, living off of welfare and then you know, scraping by, wearing like the XJ900 shoes and stuff like that. So then when you come from where you're in a family of 8, and I don't even know what the income was that my parents were working, but we were struggling. You know, our meals every day were soup. So I don't like soup. I can't stand soup. So when you come from that, and then you making the money that you do now with the mine, you're like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm doing good.
Yeah, things aren't perfect, but you don't have that stress and that worry on, you know, so yeah.
Absolutely, and it's great to come from humble beginnings, you know.
I agree.
And I think that's where a lot of the things are going wrong with today's society, is that, you know, your kids whine and then you give them everything to make them happy instead of making them work for it. Which that's what I had to do. Yeah. I had to work for it. Like all these extra things that I wanted to get as a kid. You know, I'd go work with my grandpa out in like the Pacific Yard and Fur out there in Spokane, and we'd get $20 a week.
Yeah.
You go and working for him, and you're working in that scrap metal. You're getting dirty. You're getting filthy, and you know, you're picking up heavy things, and you're getting cut, and you get $20 at the end of the week. And with that $20, you know, you save it, and you know, the very first thing I got, because I felt like I was rich with $20, I spent $20 on my very first Oakland Athletics hat.
Really?
I thought it was like the greatest thing in the world. Yeah, I was like, look, I got this for myself, and I spent $20.
Oh, the Oakland A's were so big back then. I remember. Yeah. Are you talking Mark McGuire?
Jose Canseco,
yes, during
Ricky
those
Henderson,
days.
Dave Stewart.
Yeah.
And that was just fantastic. So, you know, that's what helps me to stay positive, because I know where I came from. And like April said, you know, even now doing what I'm doing, yeah, we still struggle. Kids still get sick, you know, you're still wondering if you can make that payment. But
do you ever worry though that, you know, you like you said, okay, there's things that are good about your parents, but then there's things you decide to do differently, and you're like, I'm not going to do that. Now, we all do that.
Yeah.
But do you ever fear that you can go too far the other way and make things too soft for your kids?
Absolutely. And my thing is trying to be their friend more than their parent. You know what I'm saying? So like being their buddy. Like my kids are my friends. They're my friends. I get along with them, but I also got to remember that I'm also their parent.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, yes, you can go too far one way. Like I'll have,
because I'm thinking, like, to me, that almost as society has swung that way so far. We're like, now we're so trying to make sure nobody's feelings are hurt, trying to make sure that you know, all the kids are grown up and nobody's ever bullied ever in their life. And I agree, I hated bullies growing up, but bullies served a function.
Sure.
You know, there was like this, I don't know, kind of natural order to the wildness. You know what I mean? Of like these things, you either got stronger or you didn't.
Right. And yeah, I will say that too. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the bullies because I was one of the kids that did get bullied every once in a while, but I also knew how to fight.
I was on both sides.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I was on both sides of it.
Yeah, I knew how to fight, and it is because, and they were shocked when a kid like me, you know, I was, well, you know, I'm not a big guy. I'm small, and out of my 6 brothers, I'm the smallest out of all of them. And so when you're growing up and you got, you know, you don't have money, you're wearing raggedy clothes, you know, and your shoes are, you know, the soles are coming off, and then people find out that you used to box or you do box, and they see this small skinny kid and they're like, we're gonna fight, you know. And they're like, no, we're not gonna do this here. And they're like, yeah, we are. I said, I'll tell you what, you come to my house and we could put on the gloves and we could do it there. And some people would show up. They would show up. Some of them would show up, and they'd be amazed at like how this 85-pound kid knocked the living crap out of somebody that's 145, 150 pounds.
Yeah.
But those times and that you going through that also has taught you how to deal with adults, because unfortunately those bullies and those people, I mean, people change, don't get wrong, but they just grow up to be adults. Yeah. And
they grow up to be still, some people are still bullies, and they just do it in different ways.
But I feel like going through all that, like my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I grew up very, you know, not a lot either, so I totally can relate with that. And like I had a job very young, and so my school clothes and all that, you know, excited I got to go to like Zoomies and go to these places and buy the clothes I wanted to buy. Right. Still there. My kids go to Zoomies now. It's weird, but so but I feel that we have, you know, back to the point of our kids being so soft, is like because they haven't had to go without anything for the most part.
See, and there it is.
And they haven't had to go without, so their appreciation for things isn't where ours was. And that's not their fault.
You know, they haven't had to go without, but in some ways, do you feel that they feel they do? Because there's levels out there now. Like kids, there's so much exposure to like, oh, so-and-so has this, or so-and-so has this, or so-and-so looks good, or so-and-so. There's so much.
But we had to deal with that too, because I had friends that had this and had that, you know what I'm saying, and I didn't have. Yeah. So it's still on the antes went up, but kids are going without certain things because their other friends has a GoPro or you know what I'm saying? It's so materialistic.
Well, I'll say that I agree with you, and it's not just, you know, when they're going without. I think it's also, you know, that kind of makes a kid feel like they don't think they are, but they are spoiled, you know. And I think we're hurting them in that way in this society, but also self-development as far as like outdoor activities and you know, getting away from the Xbox, PlayStations. Yeah,
kids don't have imaginations anymore.
So like Milo could probably talk to something about this, and maybe you too. But when I was a younger kid, you know, that's the only thing we could do is we'd go outside, play sports, you know, basketball, football, baseball, because we didn't have all of these electronics that we have right now. So many things that can put us in front of the TV and not develop the skills that God has given us as far as like our hands and our feet and to keep us in shape. So when I started but coaching baseball for some of these kids, not just out here, but when I was living in Post Falls, some of these kids at 3rd or 4th grade couldn't throw a ball over the plate from 30 feet out, you know, and didn't know how to swing a bat. And I know when I was a kid, some of these kids in 3rd grade, man, they were throwing sliders, they were throwing breaking balls, they were throwing curve balls, and now some of these kids can't even throw a ball.
It seems to me now like there's almost this divide, though. You're right. There's the kids that are not getting outdoors, they're not doing these things, but then you got the kids that are like with, I don't know if it's really the kids or if it's the parents or a combination of both, that they're playing their sport 365 days a year. They live it. We're going to travel. Like, you're going to be a pro someday. And it's like there's two extremes now of like kids that don't go outside and then kids that aren't almost allowed to be kids.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, my kid's on this competitive team and they've got dance practice or they've got this and they've got that and they've got, the parents are like,
they're scheduled out.
it's so scheduled out. It's almost a lack of, to me, it's almost a little bit of a lack of balance in both directions. It's,
yeah. Well, I think, it's more of like the parents trying to live vicariously through their...
I think there's a lot of that.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding.
Where they want to, well, I was so close to doing that. Yeah. But you didn't. Let your kid be a kid.
Or they want their kid, or they want the coaches and that to raise their kids and teach them these things instead of you being the parent and teaching these things.
I think that's a yes. What you're saying right there, I kind of feel that like a lot of people feel that coaches coaches and teammates are going to parent their kids,
right.
Almost like they're going to give them challenges, they're going to teach them lessons and all this other stuff that
good,
a lot of people aren't.
But like I said, I just don't think that there is a balance. I think it's either all one way or all the other way, and there isn't that healthy mix of like, okay, you're in sports, but we have family time, you have your friend time, you have these things to create all these skill sets you're going to need to get through life, instead of just throwing them at one area where then they don't know the other areas of life.
It sounds like you did the sports, but you also had the balance, though. Like you said, you were making $20 a week doing. I mean, do you feel like that was?
Well, and that's the one thing is like I feel like I said, God gave me my parents for a reason, and that was to have me grow up the way I did and be really kind of like appreciative of what I do have. So my parents, as far as how we were raised and what we did, it was exactly what needed to be so that I can be the parent that I am right now. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the best.
Yeah. So I'm glad it's you here with me, Ben, and I don't mean that in any way negative. That's a compliment, because I don't feel any pressure with you. We just had major technical difficulties.
And that's what I want.
And I had to restart this thing, and we lost probably 10 minutes of conversation in there that you basically told us the entire secret to life.
Right.
And,
and now it's still the secret to life.
And it's, we lost all of it. And
well, I figured that shit was just for us anyway.
Yeah.
Nobody else needed to know. It was just for us and let us be really appreciative of who we are and where we've been in life. So
yeah, for sure. We were hitting on a whole bunch of good things right there. Yep. But but one thing I've had in my mind too is like, so one time I said to Ben was helping me out. He had a broken arm or something. And so he was at the trailer. You were at the trailer with me. We were working together there at the trailer, and you were just kind of filling in for something to do and whatever. There was a transition point in life right there. And I said, Ben, do you want to just do this with me? Do you want to like, dude, like you're like Mr. Positive. You're super good with all the customers. And I was like, what if we just built this thing together? And I was struggling because I was in weird transition time in my life too. And I was starting to consider like, man, I don't know that I can build this thing. And so I threw it out there to you and I said, dude, do you want to just do this? Like, we'll somehow figure out how to build a brand and build a company here. And Ben looks at me and he's like, dude, I appreciate that you'd ask me. That means a lot, but I hate people. And I was just like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I hate people. I'm gonna get on up at the mine and go underground, and I can just go do my thing, and I can work hard. And if I don't want to see anybody for 6 hours, then I don't gotta see anybody.
Right.
And I was like, but Ben, you're underground, and it's hot sometimes and cold, and you're wet. And he's like, yeah, I know, and it's better than people. and that was blew me away. And I'm like, you're so good. I kept trying to convince him, but you're so good with people. I know. I've worked in customer service a lot. I think you told me you managed a Pizza Hut or a Domino's or something.
Yeah, I managed a Pizza Hut. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're like, I've worked in customer service. I think you said you managed some warehouse or something, or am I confusing that?
No, I also managed call centers as well.
Okay, yeah, and that's got to be ugly.
Absolutely. I mean, you're not only dealing with like a whole bunch of employees with all their issues and stuff like that, and then you know, you
the
have
general public is
that and
snarkiness.
That, and plus every once in a while you have to take that call where the customer wants to take your family and on every single belongings and take it from you because you're so mad, and it's just because their cable television got turned off because they didn't pay their bill. You know, so, and then when you're dealing with food, you get people in there that are hangry, man, and then you try to give them the world, and it's just not good enough.
You know, you're right. People get emotional, especially about food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emotional.
So when you brought that to me, I was thinking, gosh, you know, that sounds good, and just really flattered, honestly, because you've been a help, and you may not think this or not, but you've been an inspiration as well. And you're gonna like, well, how did I do that? I'm Mr. Negative. It's like, you know what? I don't feel like you were Mr. Negative, but you helped me out when I needed to be helped. And even when we were mining together, you were that guy that helped me stay positive, because, you know, people made me feel like I was never doing good enough. You know, when I was your guys' miner 3, right? And I was out of the lunchroom before anybody, and I was the last one always there. And I always felt like I was never doing good enough, and I was only getting like 3 hours of contract, right? And then Milo was the one that actually said, dude, you deserve every bit of that 6 hours that they can give you. You're the first one out, and you're the last one in. You're working hard, and you go above and beyond, right? And just to kind of hear that positive feedback helped me out. So when you offered me that, I was like, this guy sees value in me that I didn't see. So it was motivating. So I had that little bit from you, and actually that little bit was a lot, and it helped me out quite a bit. And so when you offered me that, I liked it. It was flattering. It helped me to do better in what I'm doing now. And like the reason why I didn't want to do it was because, yeah, customers irritate me, you know, and I shouldn't be that way, but it's just customers. It's the whole customer service. As far as like people are concerned, I could be in a group of people, but I can't serve them food. I can't do that stuff. And the other part is like, I didn't want to disappoint you. Huh. And the reason why I didn't want to disappoint you is because I don't have that discipline that you have. As far as being able to get up and take care of my own stuff, I'm one of those people that have to be like, you have a set time, you have to be there, you have to do this. And I know people say that, well, that's the same idea as far as being a business owner. It's like, yeah, but then it's all on me. Yeah. I can't do that stress, and I can't, I don't feel like I was disciplined enough. So I didn't want to be like, get into that business with you and flake, and then not only maybe demolish a business, but lose a good friend.
I can respect that, and I can respect that. I'm super flattered that you said that. I took it as like, oh, he sees like, this is a dead end, and I'm going to crash and burn, and this is all going to be a big failure. He doesn't want to go down with me on this.
No, that wasn't it at all. In fact, I liked your verges, because you've offered to me more than once. She's like, hey, come over here, Ben. I can make you a rock star. And I said, you know what? I believe that, and therein lies the other problem. I'd be a rock star. I'd make all this money, and then, you know, I would just blow it. I would. I'm just afraid of my own discipline or lack thereof.
Oh,
you know?
Dude, I am incredibly undisciplined. Okay. And I need to be accountable to somebody else. I need that. I need structure. Like, I struggle with it. That's a big part of the reason of why we're probably not where our business could be, is because of that lack of discipline. And so I guess what I saw in you is like, you had a really good heart, and I knew that you were the type of guy that if we had any problems, we could talk it out. Yeah. Like, some people you can't talk things out, and sometimes people you don't want to talk things out. You don't want to even give them that respect. It's not, you don't even want to. Right. But I could see that in you. I was like, here's a guy who I feel like he has a good heart, and I feel like if we had any problems, we would both be trying to do right by the other person and trying to help each other get there versus just battling with somebody or starting to hold your cards close and whatever. I don't know. That's why I threw that out there. I knew you were a hard worker, and I knew you cared. And you also had a family that you cared about. And for all your shortcomings that you saw, what I saw was a guy who was incredibly dedicated to his wife and kids, who he's going to, want to take care of them. That's what's going to hold you accountable.
Yep.
And there was a lot of things I saw in you. Yeah, you were a deep thinker. You cared about things. There was a lot of guys up at the mine who I couldn't hold a conversation with because unless it was about football or beer or hunting or something, like they couldn't hold a conversation.
Yeah.
They couldn't even discuss the nuance of things. And I felt that you could. I saw that all that in you. And honestly though, there was a part of me that was like, yeah, but I can't ask this guy to also risk with this isn't his dream and this isn't, whatever. And I was trying to figure out, is it my dream or what am I doing here? And it's, how does a guy go from going at the mine and all of a sudden give up on the benefits and the medical and all this other stuff when he's got a young family and go do this? So I didn't blame you at all for being like, I appreciated your self-awareness and that you were like, and your honesty. That's what I appreciated, which I only had more respect for you because I was like, oh, that's the problem I find with most people is they're not going to just own what their thing is, what their weakness is, what their issue is. And for you to just identify it and say, I hate people, for you to just own that and throw that out there, I was like, oh, that's incredible. His honesty is incredibly refreshing. And you were like, I think you did tell me at that time, I need somebody who's got to tell me what time to be here. I need all that. And I was like, that self-awareness is what I find is lacking in most people. And they may be aware, but they're not honest enough with themselves or others around them to just say that and put that out there. That's why I still firmly believe that. I'm like, oh, I could do a lot of things with Mr. Ben Berg because of that honesty. If we had that honesty and that self-awareness, then we can deal with things. It's when you're dealing with people who can't be honest with themselves that you can't accomplish things.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's, like I said, that's nice. That's good stuff to hear. But now it looks like you got quite the partner on the other side there.
I have an amazing partner. Yeah. The only reason that we are still in business is because
of her.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, as soon as I saw her, it's like, oh, they're going to be in business for a while.
Yeah.
So you got me, but in a female form. That's got to be better, right? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And April is, she is in so many areas. She's way more has different strengths than I do. We both come to this with different strengths, which is good because if we were both the same on all this, it probably wouldn't work as well. But yes, and that just kind of happened. That wasn't even some plan or anything. It was weird how our story, how we came to be. And there was times I was very willing to just walk away. Even there's times now where I'm like, are we doing this for the right reasons still? Are we, we don't have to cause problems. We, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm always willing to be like, let's rethink this.
Yeah.
But April has always, I don't know, brought something different to the table, and that we somehow keep plodding on. We're able to support each other through this.
I can tell you, and not to totally get off topic there, but as far as when she was up there at the counter, working up at the mine, like, did you see that new girl that's up there? I mean, who are you talking about? It's just like, well, the brown-haired lady that works up there. I'm like, yeah, I've seen her quite a bit. Like, she's gorgeous. I said, that's Milo's girl, man. You leave her alone. Yeah. So, I mean, you're doing good as far as like, that other positive side. And plus you got a lady up there that people like looking at. I'm not lying, man. And
she is beautiful.
And so you got that standpoint, and it's nice to have that.
But I remember the time they came to you and were asking about that young girlfriend of mine. who was you're like,
your
that's
daughter.
his daughter.
Yeah, that's his daughter. Yeah, they did that too.
And I told that to Alex, and I said, yeah, Ben said he was up at the mine, and guys were saying, man, Milo's got a young, hot girlfriend or something. And Alex was so disgusted. I told her this, and she was like, that's disgusting. I just laughed. I laughed, and I'm like, I'm hugely complimented that these guys could think I could, score some young girlfriend, or whatever. I just laughed, and she was like, that's so disgusting. But anyway, so I always love your little reports when you come back from the mine.
I know, and the thing is people ask me, are you Milo's spokesperson? I said, not really. I guess maybe I'm like the unofficial spokesperson, but up there at the mine. Well, what's Milo doing? I don't know. He's like, well, they changed the schedules, and then I came and talked to you, right, shortly after that, and as far as like your schedule there at the Big Fat Lunchbox, and I told him up at the mine, like, well, actually, that makes sense. So they weren't disgruntled that whenever we went there that Milo's not there, but now they understand of why it's there. So it kind of made them feel like, well, that's actually pretty smart because, I don't go there every single day, and I don't go there every single day because, well, they're good food. But man, if I ate that every day, I don't know if I'd want to move. The food is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, what they said, but I won't be able to.
It's a splurge item, definitely.
It is. You don't want to eat McDonald's every day.
No.
No.
But so when they heard that, it was fantastic. But what I wanted to say to you was, on my way, actually, I got up, I think at like 3 o'clock this morning to put some more wood on the fire, and your podcast automatically came right to my mind, like instantly. And I was thinking that we were going to talk about this right here, as far as like when I first started, helping you out and all this good stuff. And like, then I had a feeling that you were going to talk to me about, is this the right thing to do? And I was thinking, if he does talk to me about that, what am I going to say? Honestly, I didn't really have an idea except for this that just came to my mind, is that when you came to work at the mine, you were, and don't take this the wrong way, you were unmotivated. You hated working there. And there was those times where we were working like with Ben Turnbull and Adam Hoban, and they were like, they came into your heading where you're working, and you were jacklegging. And by the way, they don't use jacklegs anymore, man. It's all C-Mac now, which it's slowing down production for quite a few people. But besides the point, they went into your heading, and you were doing good. They said, you're doing good. And then Milo, I guess, like, just put the jackleg down. Worst job ever. And then there was times, and I still think about this today, when Milo came into our beat room, and I see Milo coming in and signing the blast sheet and then signing out his time card, and I said, how's it going, Milo? And I still tell people this at work today, because it helps me smile. I'm not gonna lie. It was like, I said, how's it going, Milo? He said, you know what? I'm thinking about just putting my mouth around a muffler and calling it a day. and you know what? When I'm having a bad day at work, I think about that, and I'm not lying to you, dude. It works every single time. I just start laughing, and people will be in the beat room and like, what are you laughing about? I said, it's just for me. This is just for me. And so the reason why I'm bringing up those stories, like they're neat stories, don't get me wrong, they're great stories, but I felt like I needed to tell you that to help you stay motivated in what you're doing, because you were always excited about starting this. I remember you talking to us in our refuge chamber, to me and Greg and Adam, and saying, this is what's going to happen. I'm excited about doing this. And you put everything into it. And you have, man. I mean, look at what you're doing right now. All this stuff that you guys have built together, and that what you continue to do, and you're finding different things that are working out, and it's working. You guys probably aren't exactly where you want to be right now, but remember where you came from, or what you didn't like, and how you enjoy this of what you're doing right now. you keep this going, man. You guys are going to do fantastic. It's just, like I said, I didn't have that discipline. Look at what you've built. I mean, it all flies by and it makes you feel like you haven't done anything, you know?
Yeah.
But being on the outside, looking in, you guys have actually done fantastic. And I'm saying that because I'm proud of you both. Like, I really am. What you guys have been doing has been fantastic. Stay motivated, man. If you want to come back at the mine, heck yeah, I'd take you in a heartbeat. You come work with me every single day. You know, I wouldn't mind taking you back up there, but at the exact same time, I want to remind you of like where you came from and what you didn't like about the place. And I'm telling you right now, you can make good money up there. You can. But the morale up there is not good.
Yeah.
And it spreads like an infectious disease.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you can't separate yourself from that, then your day every day is horrible, and it gets to the best of us at times up there.
Yeah.
At least right where you're at, you can control your environment. You're the boss. Well, you're second in command, but
right.
But yeah, man. Like I said, come back if you want to, but I think you guys are doing fantastic.
I don't know that I'd have it in me to go back up there. I don't. Things would have to, you know, there's a lot of great people up there. I miss the people.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I could go back up there. I just wouldn't have it in me. The thing that it was that I couldn't, I don't know, express my personality by making, like, we're spending so much time up there, but you can't make the place homey. You can't feel like it's your place. Like, if you were to put something in a refuge chamber to make it feel a little homey, somebody would destroy it. A cross shift, somebody would just go in there and randomly destroy your stuff. You couldn't leave personal belongings there. You couldn't, like, whatever. In this space that we have, it's actually just, it's a place to express myself.
Sure.
And so I think what I was so excited about back then was I didn't really know where it was all going to go, but it was a way to not just express myself, but to create an experience for people. It wasn't just sandwiches. Remember, it was about music.
Yeah.
Remember that time we cooked underground?
Yep.
Like, I had to have a little Bluetooth speaker.
Yeah,
we were listening.
Chris, was it not? It was Chris. Was it Chris Rock they were listening to? It was one of his comedian stand-ups that we were listening to.
I think that was a different time too, though.
We did do that. Yeah,
we listened to some of those stand-ups, but I think when we did like Cuban sandwiches underground, I was playing Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin.
Yep.
In front of those guys.
Yeah,
and I was like, I was trying to see their reaction, because these guys are hardy, dudes. They're hard dudes. And I was like making sandwiches, playing a little Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and trying to create a vibe, 2,000 feet underground or wherever we were. And that's what it was to create. I was trying to create an experience. And anyway, so those are some of my best memories up there, is when we were underground like that. Those times, some of those times we had good talks too, and some of those headings and everything. I always liked all that kind of stuff. It wasn't, obviously I didn't enjoy the work so much, but because you were just by yourself in this hole and doing your thing. But it really bummed me out that, like, you couldn't make that space feel like it's your own. Sure. And in a way, this tacky little trailer of ours, that's an extension of our home.
Right.
And we get to express ourselves how we want to there. It's not even so much about not having a boss. In a way, we do. In a way, it's the customer. It's whatever. There's lots of different ways we can look at that. But it's a way of, I don't know. I feel at home there. I never felt at home at the mine. I always went up there and I just had this dark feeling, like the morale was low. And sometimes the things I would say to you is because I knew how positive you were. So in times, I knew I was going to maybe get a laugh out of you. I enjoyed getting a laugh out of you. So I would try to be, I don't know, I think subconsciously, I think I was just trying to get a reaction out of you and just come up with whatever, because I enjoyed those. Once I met you and I was like, oh, I really like this guy. It would be to just get that rise out of you. And in turn, you brightened my day. Like, you always brightened my day up there. And I always, like, we could talk for hours in some heading, and
we did that.
We did that
quite a bit. I mean, I'm doing utilities, and sometimes I just stop you and we would just talk. And I at my stage of my life in that kind of work we were doing, I needed that. And see, so we fed off of each other. It wasn't just you feeding off me. I was feeding off you too, because I needed it. And you were the only person that I can actually, I mean, I could talk to people, don't get me wrong, but it was the type of conversation that you and I could have that I liked, because I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the most intellectual, but there's more things to life than beer and sports, you know, or the lewd jokes up there. There's life. You let me know that there's life outside of here, and there other people are paying attention to it as well, you know. And we bring up all kinds of stuff to talk about, and that was great. I mean, any topic that I brought up, you knew about. Any topic that you brought up, I knew about, you know. And it was nice, because it was nice to have an actual adult conversation.
Yeah, about relevant things.
About relevant things.
Yeah.
You know, things that mattered, and sometimes things that would actually
those were the times that I felt normal and real. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time up there, I had to keep myself to myself, because guys, I didn't relate to them, and they didn't relate to me. I'm in this foreign environment, underground, feeling like I'm on a different planet with guys who I don't really see the world the same way as.
Yeah.
And some of them I did. There's a lot of great guys up there. But I couldn't figure out how to, like, there's some guys up there, they can't imagine a life outside of that place. And I was like, how do I get to that level? Like, how do I get to that where I can, like, where I just accept and embrace this? And I just couldn't, which is why I was hoping it was going to come to me, and it just wasn't coming to me.
You were a good hand, too. And that's what was, like, when you decided to leave, I mean, there was a part of me that felt like you were going to, especially after you talked about starting the Big Fat Lunchbox. You know, I was like, okay, this is actually going to happen. And Zendar's even says, you know, this guy, he really doesn't like it. He should probably just leave. And I was like, I hope he don't. I mean, honestly, I hope he doesn't, because he's a good hand. And Greg said, yeah, he is. But he's just not happy. And I felt that too. But you, man, you were good. I remember this one time we were up at, I think it was like 17-2A4 up on the 38. And it was you and Adam. And Adam talked to you. He's like, hey, Milo. And, you know, they were both, you know, the east and west headings. I don't know if you remember this or not, but you're both east and west headings. And you did the west, and he did the east. And there was a round lane in each heading, minimum width. And Adam comes up to you at the start of shift. He's like, Milo, let's cycle these things. And you went and mucked and bolted that round, and Adam mucked and bolted the other round, and we got both of those rounds in that day. You guys cycled those two rounds, and I was impressed. It was like, because I don't think it was till about like 9:30 when he said, hey, let's go do this. And I think you guys got up into that heading at 10 o'clock. Adam cheated too, by the way.
I don't doubt.
Well, he cheated because you were mucking out with a 2-yard, right?
I think so. And now I'm remembering. Now I'm starting to remember this.
He went and got that cabless 4-yard.
Oh yeah, that's amazing to me that you remember this, and you remember like the address of where we were, basically.
Yeah,
that's
well,
wild.
It played a big effect because I was impressed. I was impressed with it. I mean, when you're a minor 3 and you see this guy that was in minor 3, graduated from minor 3 right as I got into the minor 3.
Yeah, and
then we ended up in the same headings, and I saw your development. I was like, this guy's good. I mean, he's been out of minor 3 training probably about 3 months longer than I've been out, right? But you were like a lot further as far as the capability of mining. And you were able to actually do that. It's like, so when I saw that and you did it, and A4 wasn't the easiest of the headings. It wasn't. I liked A3 a lot better. I don't know why, but I liked A3 a lot better. And you did it with ease. And after at least I felt like it was ease. I know you were like, oh, this is horrible. But you did it. And I thought, this guy can make this. This guy can do this job. But you were I just don't think he liked the whole environment of it. I don't think he really minded the work. I think it was like the whole thing you didn't like.
I had other things going on in my life too as well at that time. And you know, I don't know. I think I was at this point where I don't know. I was trying to make sense of some things. I was trying to figure out my life. We're dealing with home issues and everything else. And honestly, there's things too. Like I feel like that on those occasions, I needed that pressure. Like I don't feel like I operated up there to my potential a lot of times because I don't know why. I just didn't feel that pressure. I think on a day like that, though, I felt that pressure. Like, oh, okay. Because a lot of times I'm amazed. I feel very flattered by your compliments because I just didn't feel like I knew I wasn't considered like a bad guy or whatever, but I wasn't exceptional. I felt like I'm a small guy. We're throwing a lot of weight around up there. I was worn out. It was beating me up. I got started the game a little late. I was 40 years old, and it was beating me up. And I don't know. So there was times I just didn't feel like I was very good at it at all. So I'm amazed that you felt that I was, because I was like, you and I had the same trainer in Minor 3 training. I felt like I got out, like I'd gotten worse. Like this guy did not do me any, not to put all the blame on him.
He slowed me down too, man. Yeah.
I just started to overthink everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he did with me. And then I talked to like Jeremiah, and he's like, look, what they do is they teach you safety.
Yeah.
And he says, and the trainer that you had, he makes it out like it's rocket science. And I'm going to let you know, it's not. It's not the prettiest thing in the world to do.
I got to where I couldn't place a bolt.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything without overthinking it about which square do I go into right here. And one square off, like, oh, that was dumb.
Well, and see, in our trainer that you and I had, I was trying to figure out things for myself. And I told my brother Jeremiah this, and I said, but no matter what I'm doing, it's never good enough. And so he told me this story. He said, I've been mining since 2001. And, you get these old guys in here where you have to do it exactly their way. And if you don't do it their way, then you're not going to get that bump up in pay, or you're not going to get those good headings. So he says, I've worked with Boyd. He says, I'm going to tell you this, learn his ways. And as soon as you learn his ways, you'll get out of that Minor 3 training. Dude, as soon as I did exactly what he wanted down to the T, that next week I was out. I memorized every move of his, every single one of them. But the bad part was I took that to the headings. And that was bad. Like, that was horrible.
That ends up holding you back from progressing further on.
Absolutely. But then the other thing after that, after I got out of that training, I think I was in a stope for a week, and then they put me into development. And what did I do in development? I was pretty much I just loaded rounds, and every once in a while I'd muck out a round, or I was loading up a bolter, or I was going getting powder. So then I was in that for almost a year. And then I went back into the stope. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm learning this all over again. And that's when I started working with you.
Yeah. What's interesting is I took those experiences, and now like we hire employees, and we then have to figure out how to train people. And I really try to avoid those pitfalls of being so like it has to be done this way.
Yeah.
I try to be open to people. It's not easy training people. It's just that some people have a feeling for it. Some people don't have a feeling for it. But I did try to take those experiences, and now all of a sudden the roles are reversed. I've developed a system, or I've developed a way that I got to teach other people, and I'm like, how do I do this to where they don't all of a sudden they're second guessing everything they do? Because that impaired both you and I. It was actually refreshing when I met you and I first talked to you, and I was like, wait, who's your trainer? And we were both, and I was like, and we kind of opened up to each other. And I said, I feel this. And you were like, yeah, I do too. I'm like, really? Because like, did you feel this, or did you go through this? And you were like, yeah. And we started to share all that, and I started to feel normal. Because I didn't feel normal. I felt like I'm a loser when I came out of training with that guy.
Right.
And all of a sudden we were like, wait, it wasn't us.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. And that's the thing is, like we were talking about with the kids too. I mean, even as adults, you still got to let us think for ourselves.
Yeah.
Otherwise we don't develop.
Yeah.
Even at this day and age with our age, I can still develop, you know, and I can still get good at things, but you got to let me think for myself, because that's how I'm going to get better. If you start doing moves that other person does, then it goes without thinking. And so then you just stop thinking. And then when you go in and just do repetition, just because it's repetition, you end up messing up.
Yeah.
You know? So,
it's interesting though that you bringing that into almost like parenting. It is interesting. I think there's times in my life where I kind of did that even with my own kids, where it's like, okay, now they're too afraid to think for themselves, and they're like trying to think, well, what's my next step here? Because anything I do is going to be wrong, and now I'm hesitant, and it keeps them back.
Yep.
I've never thought about that. I've never put those two and two together. I know I've recognized it in myself at times where I've maybe done that, and then as I've gotten older, now I'm like, I've backed off completely the other way, and I'm just like, I'm super like, here, figure it out. Go figure it out.
Right. You can give people advice.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wish I had adopted that a little bit earlier. I wish I'd adopted that a little bit earlier.
Well, see, and then there you go. I mean, that's the learning experience in itself.
Yeah.
Right there. And hopefully that gets carried on to our kids, you know, and that they learn how to, don't be like me, boy.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Think for yourself, because I did the same thing to my kids, where they were more like, you know, when I was first parenting, getting into the adult thing, I always know better kind of thing, do it my way. And so then the kids would, well, I need to do this, how would dad want me to do it? Or I need to do this, what would make dad happy? You know, or what would make dad so he's not mad at me, you know? So when they do that, they get so nervous that they make a mistake, you know, and then at first, like I said, I wasn't a great parent. I'd get mad, but now I think that's another thing that helped me with this mining, because I fell into into adults that reminded me of my kids. They were worried about what the boss was going to say or what the boss was going to do, or they were worried about what I was going to say or what I was going to do. And, I don't want that feeling, because it hurts me. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Where they're intimidated, and I'm not supposed to be that way. I'm supposed to be this person that's compassionate and meek and nice, and to help them development, and instead of like, you know, do exactly the way I want it, how I want it, because not everybody can do it the way I want it, or the way that it needs to be done. Everybody has their own way of going about getting things done, and it'll still get done, you know, but you got to be patient so that they can figure that out. Like I said, you can give them advice. Oh, this is a route that I go, but I do it this way because this is what's easy for me. So you can try this way, but don't be afraid to try a different tactic that helps you to get it done. That might be easier for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like with how you taught me how to bolt up a round, of how you would station yourself, what you would do first, and then you would stand here, and then you could do the rest of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just opened up everything for me. After that, I was able to muck and bolt around in a shift. Take me all day to do it, you know, but I was able to do it after I got that standpoint, after I got that piece of advice. Now I made some changes to it that was easier for me.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about. Instead of like, just do it this way and there's no other way.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're probably doing with training people.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that with my kids now.
Yeah.
And it's getting better.
Well, everybody thinks different and works different. And their brains work differently. So they have to adapt to how they do things. And it's never going to be the same.
April is much better at all that. I noticed too, though, with her kids, though. She's much more open. I was just more like, boom, shut, like, look, anything outside of this, I'm going to shut this down, you know. And I noticed, because I have a different approach now with her kids. Mm-hmm. Like, we have 2 high school aged kids in the house, and they're April's kids, everything. And my approach is much different, you know, about things. And especially because my position is much different. But I notice that, you know, she does that differently with the kids, and a different approach with employees. Which is interesting, because we both have different approaches, and when people start working with us, they got to learn both of us. I feel bad for them. almost too empathetic, and now I'm almost trying to make things too easy. And that creates its own problems now, because now I'm trying to not be that tyrant. I'm trying to not be like, things are just this one way, to where I go too far the other way, and I enable them to just kind of let things go the wrong ways almost to the point of entitlement, I notice. And I create this other problem. The problem is me. I'm the problem. So I notice in things that even with them, when I'm trying to train people or bringing people on, you know, you can go too far the other direction. That's why I say, am I a boss or am I a friend? You know, or a parent or a friend? Like, if you're not finding that balance between compassion, but yet I'm also the leader here, or I'm this or I'm that, things can have unintended consequences. They can go in directions to where now I got a real problem here that we can't seem to fix, and this person doesn't want to have the patience to fix it, and I don't think I have the tolerance to put up with it or something. Anyway, April's approach has been different on things, and other people are like, she's just very direct. You're very direct with employees. Her thing is, which is funny, because I feel like it's almost a little bit opposite of, I don't know if it's opposite, but different with kids. But she's very direct. If this is wrong, I'm going to correct it right now on the spot. I'm going to let things go way too far.
Yeah.
And we both have these different approaches.
I've read a lot of books.
See,
too. I've read a lot of books on that, and now, like, a lot of things came like that. And I am pretty direct. I don't, you know. Yeah.
But that approach is how I was with my kids. I was like, I'm going to correct this right now. Like, I didn't let it go. I didn't.
And I think because my reason is it's different. It's different when I'm dealing with an adult or different when I'm dealing with a kid. Kids are learning. Yeah. They're learning. They're still developing, and they're still doing their thing. I haven't always been that way with kids. My oldest can contest to that. Sure. Huge. But as you grow up, your parenting style changes, and you grow up and you figure things out. But when you're dealing with adults, like business-wise, I don't want no gray. I don't want no gray. I don't tell them how to do it specifically, but I tell them what, you know what I'm saying? Sure. They got to figure out their own style, but I am direct. Yeah.
Well, you know, and
I don't mince my words.
No, and and I'm gonna tell you, I think this is the important reason of having a husband and a wife raising kids together, is because you do have that balance. And I'm right there with Milo as far as like I was very direct with my kids, you know, but it was nice to have that female presence in there with me that helped the kids out. You know, because dad was the iron fist and mom was the cuddly, I can come to mom, I need that comfort kind of a thing, you know. And so and I learned a lot from my wife. You know, like little tiny tactics too that you wouldn't think would make a huge difference, but they do. And like realizing like, hey, every kid's different. They're not all Ben Bergs and all Milo Solomons, you know.
No,
they're
they
not
all
that.
have to be parented differently.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the tactics that she taught me to do was that when I was to explain something to them, or if I was getting after them, she'd say, get down on your knees and look at them in the eye. Don't look down at them. Look at them.
Yep. Get on their level.
Get on their level and look at them and explain to them what's happening.
Yeah, not
instead of just like,
right, this is what I said.
Right. And that's one of the things I used to do. Like, well, Dad, what I have to? Because I told you to. Yeah. you know. And that's the way I was raised. You don't question me, boy. Yeah. You know, you do what I tell you to do. But you get a better, as I learned from my wife, you get a better response by explaining why things are being done. Yep. Because then it also helps you, like, really, like, why are you having to do this?
Why? And then in your head, you're like, well, why am I doing it?
Right.
Like, just because this is what I've always done, or I have really no reason.
Right. See, and that's what it is. You need to learn your role. You need to learn that I told you to do it, and you don't do it without question, right? But that was wrong of me to do that.
But, and I also get wrong, is that I do play both roles, too, though. I have to be the one to let my kids learn, but there's times, you know, as, you know, being divorced parent or whatever, that I have to fill both of those roles at different times.
And that's got to be tough.
Oh,
that had to be
toughest
tough.
job in the
Yeah,
world.
absolutely. That has to be tough.
Yeah.
And
Because sometimes I don't want to always be the bad guy, or I don't, always want to be. And so I have found in this role where before I have become much more of not the bad guy, because, you know what I'm saying? I don't have that play there. So I have become more understanding and more, that way. So to let my kids, like, they're learning, they're going to make their mistakes. And if I don't let them make their mistakes, then they're never going to learn. With my oldest daughter, that was a whole different game. Like, and I was still her mom and her dad, but I don't know, it's just different. I've learned a lot.
Absolutely. And that's the bad part about being the firstborn. Because you are the guinea pig. You are the first out of these two parents that are actually first starting to be a parent, and you're
like the rough draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that with the progression of my kids, I've got better. But to an extent, like with my last one, I'm starting to think I'm being a little too lenient on you, boy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, Ben, are you getting tired? I don't know. I think I'm carrying a whole lot less now.
You learn that those battles that you pick, it doesn't matter in the end.
Right.
It really doesn't matter in the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you got your rough draft, like Milo was saying, and then you got your middle one, and then they're doing better than the third one, or whatever.
By the end, you're not really even caring about the rough drafts. You're just like, I have the assignment due, I'll just rip it out. It's not a big deal. I'm not stressing it. I don't really care what grade I get.
You want to teach them morals and values, but beyond that, they're going to be who they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing, though, that I wish I had done differently, and I have tried to do that here with people, and now there's just the three of us at the trailer. So we've kind of like changed the focus of our business, so we don't have a bunch of employees, and that's kind of not the direction we're going in right now. But one thing that always gets me with employees or people that I'm having to teach and everything else is creating an environment where they can question me, or where they can bring an issue to me, or things like that. And one thing I feel like I've kind of failed as a parent was I taught my kids to respect authority, but I don't feel that I taught them well enough on how to respectfully question authority.
Okay.
And I feel like that's to have that confidence of being like, how do you approach this? You've got a dad who's like drawing the line, boom. Mm-hmm. How do you break down that barrier with him? And you got in trouble for something. So how do you take ownership of that? How do you have that conversation with him? And have the confidence to have that conversation, and have the self-awareness and the humility and all of that. And I feel like that is an important part of becoming an adult, is learning all of those things. And I don't feel that I did a direct approach on teaching that to my kids. I try to teach it with employees of like, hey, when you have an issue, you can come to me. If you have a question about how I'm telling you to do something and you have an idea how it can be done better, talk to me about it. Mm-hmm. I would consider that. If you're running late or you're going to be late, you're late, just own it with me. Just tell me, and I can deal with that. Don't try to BS me, or whatever else. But how do you create that environment where they feel comfortable to talk to you? Yeah. And that's not just respecting authority or fearing authority, but how to question authority and how to, I don't know, communicate on a different level.
Well, some people just, as far as like, say for you being the boss, being the parent, like how do you portray that to those people that are around you, that they can first come to you and even question that, or do you want to train somebody to where they feel comfortable in questioning anybody? Can you do that? I don't know. I'll tell you this though, as far as like being in a leadership stance, which you guys are in, and I'm kind of in as well, and I'm still working on it, is going up to them and telling them point blank, you got an issue with me? Come tell me. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to come with this approach with kindness. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. But it's hard for people to believe that, right?
Because not all people that are in authority want to be questioned,
right,
whether it's respectfully or not.
Right.
And like my youngest son, I either did him a service or a disservice. I think we'll see. But he questions everything. And he's not afraid to ask. Yeah. So I know he'll butt heads with a lot of teachers because he questions things and they don't like that. Some of the teachers are like, awesome, that's great. But some of the teachers are like, I don't like that. Yep. So, and it's just, but tough. He's me. Yeah. I questioned everything.
Yeah. But one thing I think he's been figuring out along the way is, and I don't know if he does this at school, but I know at home. So he does question things. But one thing he has gotten better at is owning things.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if he's deploying that at school with teachers enough to be like, hey, I will own this. You know, or having that self-awareness and responsibility, like when he messes up, to own something, and that diffuses a situation.
Yeah, and he has
quickly.
lots. I've had lots of teachers say, yeah, he'll admit it. You know, he's admitted it. He didn't try to lie.
But funny how many adults get into the workplace who can't do that. I think that's such a valuable lesson that he's been learning early.
Oh yeah.
Is how to diffuse a situation by just owning something and dealing with employees. And now me looking back as like, oh, when I was an employee, I mean, I hope that I was that guy who owned something instead of always making up an excuse or an angle of where I might not be at fault for something instead of just owning it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you take everybody, that's why I'd always tell Gage for years, and now he's finally getting it. It's like, if you own it, what can anyone say to you?
Right.
Like, you've just taken all the wind out of their sails, and what can they say?
Well, you know, as far as what you guys are doing, I think it's fantastic, you know, and I think that's great that you do that. And I think it's okay for kids to question teachers. I think it's okay for them to question any kind of authority that they're in, because like we say, you know, we want a reason as to why we're doing this. And if we think one way, teach us why.
Exactly.
You know?
Don't take what somebody says. That's how you get into bad situations.
Right.
It's just by believing everything everybody tells you and following everybody that.
Right. And there's a way to actually approach it too, you know, and I think that's the one thing that we got to teach our kids is how to approach it instead of being like, well, my daddy says, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
You know, and
how many people nowadays though are growing up to just not question anything that's being, you know,
people don't question.
A lot of the society,
you know, and that's the thing is like
just doing what they're told.
It's like it's either we throw a tantrum in society and we're going to burn something down, or we just go along with it, you know. And I feel like we're seeing so much of that in the last couple of years with the things that have gone on, to where now people are like, they either don't know how to question authority respectfully, and call somebody out on the carpet, or they're going to throw a fit and burn, you know, they're just going to either burn it down or they're just going to go along.
There's no debate. There's no conversations. There's no doing research and questioning it and digging further deep into things. It's just take it at face value and that's it. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad. All my kids are different. My daughter now, she doesn't question anything. She's just going to do what she's told. That's it.
Yeah.
My son, he's going to question everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's that whole process of, you know, first child, second child, third child, fourth child. And we get better as we go through it. And I'll tell you, with my boy Chase, he was my first one of mine and Tara's, and that's the one that we you know, he was our rough draft. I really like that saying, by the way, the rough draft. And
first draft.
Yeah.
First draft.
And he was quite timid, and it was because of me. He was scared because of me. He did a lot of very unconfident in a lot of things because of me. And
you were Boyd. I'm gonna have to fuzz that name out. We can't say that name and have people be like, "Who was training? Who trained these guys?"
You said it.
You said it first. You said it earlier.
Oh no!
Yes.
You better get that out of there, because I don't want him to come back.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to all of this and beep it. Just so, do you ever run into him?
No, not anymore. He retired.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll let it roll.
Yeah.
He's not gonna come across this.
He's not really like technical savvy either, you know, at least from what I remember. But to like help out or kind of give you a little bit of like motivation, Chase came out of that shell, and he stands up for himself. He lets his bosses know what he thinks. And he's able to rub off like people getting mad at him now. You know, but it's not because he learned from dealing with me being difficult. It's eventually I was able to change, and he was able to see that change, and then knowing that he can change too.
Yep.
And he did that. So, you know, he's in the welding industry. He works out at True North Steel, and he's welding out there, and you have to get tough. You know,
you gotta
stuff.
have a thick skin,
right? And you gotta let people know what's gonna go on, otherwise you're gonna get hurt. So that helped him too. So it wasn't just that he was able to see me change. He got into an environment where he also had to make that change. It's either fly or die, you know. But he did. He's doing a lot better with that now, and he's doing good.
That's pretty huge for you to say, though, that he saw that I could change. So then he could then make that change. And that's an important one.
Yeah, my kid's seen that from my oldest to my youngest, you know, during the times, you know, and when you're in life situations and they're not good situations, and it makes you not a very happy person. And so, you know, your kids feel that. It gets put off onto your kids and that. So it's not until you remove yourself from those situations that you notice your change, and then the kids notice, whoa, mom's different, you know? And so, that's all been huge.
So what made you, like, all of a sudden, like, make that change? Was there something in life that happened, or was it something?
Good question.
Yeah,
I'm interested too.
That is a good question. I just, you know, there for a while, it was like, okay, the old saying, you made your bed, you know, gotta make the best of it. Gotta sleep in it. Let's make the best of it, and I'm gonna do this, which worked for a while. Yeah. But deep down it didn't. And so it just, you know, I'm one of these people that, like, I don't give up. I will keep pushing. And I mean, I will try every avenue. I will talk. I will do whatever it takes. But then, like with anything, there comes a point when you're like, okay, this isn't, like, enough's enough. I got to call it quits.
Right.
And so I changed a lot of things in my life, and I went down a completely different road and decided that I needed, selfishly, some of it was probably selfish, that I needed to be happy in order for my kids to show my kids to have a happy mom. That's what they needed out of life, is to have a happy mom. Yeah. And so I just made that happen. So, and then when I realized I took a lot of that out of my life, a lot of things that was causing stress or those things, I realized I was, you know, and I was just different.
Yeah. That's a good story. That's good.
It wasn't easy. It was one of the most difficult roads I ever went down in my entire life, but it was one of the best at the end.
See, and that's what's the good thing is, like, you know, I always have scripture on my mind as far as, like, way I'm supposed to learn things. Like, all things work to the good of them that love God, and there's the other words where it's like, you know, count it all joy when you fall upon diverse temptations, and it's to help you grow. Right. And it's to help you to know that the reason why those came to be is to help you be a better person and to help your children. You know, like the way we grew up in humble beginnings is because we needed to feel that so that we can do better. And, you know, thank God that you're able to see that and do better. Yeah. So that's a good story. So keep hanging on to that. I mean, I'm not a therapist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. And the reason why I say that, April, is because that's what helped me. Yeah. Is stories like that where you hear that. And you know what's also comforting is that I'm not the only parent that dealt with this. You know, and that's quite comforting. Like we've all been there. We've all been at that point where we're not perfect.
Yeah, you really you just needed to go through those hard things to, you know, realize what's important out of it all and, like, go down those struggles, or I wouldn't be who I am now. And,
and you learn one way.
As much as I hate the things that, you know, the mistakes I made or the struggles I went through, as much as I hate them, I also have to love it too, because, like, that's who I am now.
Absolutely. So. And that's that's great. And I'm going to carry that with me too, because stories I can share with my kids and my grandkids. And that's one thing that I want to, like, tell them, you know, and I've told my kids before, you know, don't be like me. do better than
Yes.
what I did. And I'm going to tell you, with anything with kids, that's where the most of your grace and your mercy needs to be, and understanding of what they did. And that was my turning point, was I wasn't thinking like a child. I was thinking more of like an adult, because I understand, you should understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it, you shouldn't like it, you know? And it's my parents, I tell my parents this, that sounds like you're autistic. And I said, well, obviously I'm not, but I see that.
But I think it's how you're raised too, you know, and I know that's
Sure.
how I was raised too, with that, you know, the parenting and that. It's like, you know, you do as I do, you do as I say, you think like I think, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only correct way.
Right.
For me personally,
Right.
but
So when I was dealing with this and not even realize that I was dealing with it, one day I was with my kids, and I yelled for Cohen and Chase, right, to come to me, because I wanted to tell them something, or I wanted them to do something. I can't remember what it was. But man, they ran into that room. They ran into the room where I was and stood at attention like they were in the military, waiting for Dad to tell them to do something. And I can see in their face that they were kind of like scared or nervous that they were going to mess up because their full attention was on me.
yeah.
And then when I asked them to do it, it was like they were trying to be very, very careful. And that didn't come to realization for me at that point, but I noticed something was weird, right? And then I think it was 2 weeks later, we went to California to go visit some of Tara's family down there. And it was Cohen that brought me to kind of look more of at a kid's point of view, and to be more patient and more understanding. And it was because of the words that he used when he was like 4 years old. We were at the airport, we were at the Utah airport, and he was playing with some stuffed animals, and it was really quiet in there. It was nice, it was peaceful, right? I was like, oh, this is great. No, not a whole lot of commotion. And he started getting loud, making really like screaming and yelling noises with these stuffed animals that he had. And I said, Cohen, you got to stop. You're making too much noise. You do it again, and I'm taking those stuffed animals away from you, right? And so he's like, okay, Dad, I promise I won't. And then he started playing with them some more, right? And then slowly the voice volume got louder and louder and louder. And then it got really loud. I said, that's it, I'm grabbing it. I'm taking your toy. And I grabbed it from him. He said, Dad, I'm sorry. I just got caught up in the moment. And that broke my heart.
How old was he?
He was 4. That's what I'm saying. The words that he said.
That's
like,
what registered with
that was what registered. He's like, he's a kid. He was in his own little world. They had this one way of thinking, and they don't know any other thinking except the way that a kid can think. And then when I saw that broke my heart. You know, I was like, I wasn't letting my kids be kids. In fact, I was trying to make them adult at a young age.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that, like, oh, he's actually a little kid. I mean, how sad is that? You know, when you're just like, I just realized that my kid was a kid and he was 4.
But you were caught up in your moment.
I was caught up in what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I wanted my kids to be like me.
Yep.
And that hurt him. And after that moment, I was just like, I fought myself. You know, does that make sense? Like, you got to hold back that urge. And he just realized that he's a kid.
And the frustration, like, you can just build up inside you. You're so frustrated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you just have to.
You feel your face getting red.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was quite, after that, I can't say I got immediately better, by no means. But it helped me after that to realize that they were kids, you know, because they'd come in and they would salute and everything. I'm like, stop it. I think, quit. All right. And like, well, we want to show you that we're ready to do whatever you said. I say, just be as relaxed as possible. And I told them, I am sorry that I had you guys.
There's a time and a moment
you
where
had that feeling you had to do that.
Yeah, there's times and moments where your kids need to be quiet and paying attention. And there's times and moments where they need to be kids. And so it's just finding those times and what's, you know, respectable at that moment of doing. And
it's interesting though that they were able to exaggerate their actions to you.
That was Cohen.
That actually then made you see that red flag. Like until they exaggerated that. That's what I'm chuckling at. Is like, it's like they exaggerated their actions that then caused you to see like, hey, there's a red flag here. We need to do something different.
Right. And
unless they had, you probably wouldn't have saw that red flag.
Absolutely not. And it was his word choice. Like you were saying, it was his word choice that he used, that they were adult words at the age of 4. I got caught up in the moment. What 4-year-old says that, man? I mean, maybe there is some more. But when he said that, he was able to express that to me, and I was able to understand.
Yeah, but also he just owned it.
Yeah,
that's a wild like example of a 4-year-old who took like what April said. He took all your power away.
Yeah,
because he just owned it.
Absolutely,
he owned it, and you had nothing left to go on.
Absolutely,
so he disarmed you.
Right, and it was like Tara watched it, Because I mean, I'll be honest with you.
It's a tremendous power move.
Yeah, it was.
It's taking the power.
Right. And Tara was like kind of afraid of me too for a while there too, because she never knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But when she saw that, like I said, I grabbed that stuffed animal from him. When he said that, I didn't say a word. I just went, you can have it back. Yeah. And that was it. And I told my brother Elby about that. And he's like, what'd you do? I said, I gave the toy back. He's like, you better.
Yeah.
He said, did you stutter or anything? I said, no, man. I had no words. No. None.
I look at it like that is to own it, to own your actions is a power move.
Absolutely.
It completely disarms. He disarmed you. And you almost have nothing but respect for that.
Right.
Like, you earned it. Yeah. Like, you own that. That wasn't easy. That's not easy for people to own their actions, and you earned it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I interpret that.
Yeah. And it was something that I needed.
Yeah.
And it was great, and it helped out. So this is good stuff right here, man. This is fantastic, and I hope other people, like, if they do hear this and listen to this, they say, huh, right? Or otherwise they're going to be like, Ben's a wimp.
The thing that I would get from all this stuff is I don't know, at times I feel like, I don't know, I look at other people and I'm always feeling like, oh, they got it figured out, or they got it figured out. It's these moments where you talk with friends and you're like, oh, we're all going through the same things. And we get strength in knowing that we're not alone.
Yeah.
Other people are dealing with this.
And you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. Yeah.
I don't know. I beat myself up over parenting things all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, they grew up okay despite me, and I was their hindrance, or I was this, or I was that. Anyway, but then when you talk to other people and you're all raising your kids, like, I see your kids are sharp. You guys always come by. Your kids are super respectful, and I don't get to witness those moments that you're having difficulties or challenges, and it's a teaching moment, or you're this or you're that, or the times that you're frustrated or whatever. But when I see you and your kids together, I'm like, gosh, they always just seem like happy and dialed in, and everybody, like, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah. But to hear that there's those other times, there's those times where you question yourself, or the struggles that they've gone through, and in a way you're owning it in your own way too now. And I don't know, it just makes you feel more like, oh, it's okay. We all make mistakes. We're all out here just trying. My daughter told me I was actually having a conversation with her months ago, and she was like, I don't know. We were talking about kids and growing up with our family and our folks and everything, and she was like, I don't know. I think about you and Mom, and I mean, I guess you got, and she was talking about issues that she's having now because of her childhood. Sure. And then she's like, but I look back at it, and you guys were just doing the best you could. And I told her, I said, no, we weren't. No, we weren't. She's like, well, I mean, what do you mean? I said, I could have done better. Yeah. I mean, it's great, and it's real easy for me to sit here and just say now, Alex, I was young. We had a young family. I was doing the best I could. Right. I wasn't. Yeah. I wasn't doing the best I could. I didn't get up every single day saying, I'm doing the best I can today. I said there were times I just made poor decisions, or I was lazy, or I was irresponsible, or I was this, or I was that. I'm not going to sit here and just cop out and say everything about your childhood it's fine, because I was doing the best I could. So just deal with it. I wasn't. I had weaknesses. And I said, and now you're at that age now where you're starting to figure out, Alex, are you doing the best you can all the time?
Right?
Well, and I think the huge step with all that is, and even now I try with my kids, is just being vulnerable with your kids. People aren't vulnerable with their kids. They want their kids to say, oh, I'm like this superhuman and do no wrong and I'm all this. So they try to hide all that.
Right.
Just having your vulnerability with your kids and then realize they're real. You're a real person. You have these things. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the big things that, you know, me growing up as a child is to actually hear your parents say, I love you, you know, and I told that to my dad. I tell him that every day now when I talk to him on the phone. And he said, you know, out of all of my kids, I want them to know that I love them, but I know I never say it. And I think that one little part does kind of help with just saying those 3 words to them.
Just expressing it.
Yeah, because my dad had different ways of doing it. Like, you know, like I said, we grew up poor, right? And he did what he could to make sure that we were as comfortable as possible. He never said, I loved you and I care about you. But it was through his actions that I knew it without him saying it. But it would have been nice to hear it, you know, because you're still kind of, does he like me, you know? Because when and this is kind of like a sad but kind of humbling story, is that we... in our house, you know, 8 kids, and we lost our water heater. We didn't have a water heater for probably about 2 or 3 months. So my dad, and we still needed to take baths, and right. So my dad would warm up water on our electric stove, and then carry it to the bathtub to fill up the bathtub, like a 5-gallon or like a 4-gallon pot. Just heat it up. Dump it in there, heat up the next one, dump that in there. And he would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do that for me and my older brothers so that we'd all be able to take a warm bath. And that was his way of showing that he cares for us.
And at that time, you didn't realize it. No. Now you look back at that, and now you're like...
I was mad as a kid. Go get my water heater fixed.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
Exactly.
You know?
Because they can't comprehend that stuff as kids. And so I feel as parents, we get mad at our kids because they don't understand or they're not being appreciative. But they don't know, they can't.
Right. And see, and then at that point when my dad was doing that, that was his way of saying that I love you. But again, it would have been nice to say, hey, I love you. Or, you know, my dad, great person. I really love him. He's been quite the motivator for me now as an adult. But, you know, at that point, when I put my kids through decision to things because of my decisions, I'd go up to them, I'm sorry that I caused this, you know, or I'm sorry that I'm not able to fix this, you know. Not saying that I wish that my dad would have done that, but I think at that point would have showed more of his heart towards us, you know, to help us out and to help us understand and maybe even put us in his shoes, you know, like I can't afford to do this right now. You know, but we had no idea. We were just kids, you know. Yeah. So I mean, I think showing
interesting
compassion.
how important it is to express that though. Like you say, I fall into that category sometimes where I feel like I'm showing my love, but I need to express it more.
Right.
And how far that goes with the receiving.
Yeah. And see, and I recently did that with Cohen too, and I didn't say it enough to him, and it was kind of like in passing. I love you. You know, like, okay, like you would say, I love a friend or I love a brother, you know, that's the way it kind of felt. And then, you know, he went off to Wisconsin for his mission training, and I wrote him a letter, and I just put it in his backpack, and I told him how he helped me grow up, and told him that I loved him. And I got this long letter back, and he was telling me, I know, Dad, and I know that you love me, and I know that you did your best with what you can do. And he said, and your passion has helped me do what I'm doing right now, which was kind of neat to hear. But at the point is that I finally let him know deep down that of how I actually feel, no holds barred, nothing like that. And then when he came back from the youth mission, now I'm just going to say that the youth mission actually changed my boy too, as far as like getting out of his comfortability bubble that he had, which was like no hugs and you know, crowds weren't his thing. And so he had to get out of that bubble And then when he came back home, and I was surprised that he was home, wasn't sure if he was going to make the plane right because, we were at that 40 below or 35 below or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was home and he was waiting for me, and he snuck behind the door and just like tackled me and gave me a big hug. I was like, oh man, that was like one of the best hugs I've ever had. But it was that little release that helped him to be more open with me. Now he'll call me and ask me about doing some Bible studies, or he'll text me about political things here and there. And we used to not do that too often,
Yeah.
And now we're doing it quite a bit more. And that was the one child that I needed help to do that with.
Yeah.
Because I called him Dad. He's a smart kid, and he was my guy I go to, and I'd try to reason with him with my plans, and he'd help me think through it. And so it was a great release, and it was fantastic. It was really good. So now we're on a different level as far as dad and son.
And as we learn and grow, they're learning and growing. It's I know, I see that in my kids too. They are finally not finally anything, but they're going through stages now where I'm like, oh yeah, they're hitting those areas of adulthood now that I'm like, oh, that was a time for me, or that I was dealing with this and this and this, and we're able to relate with each other more. I guess we're on more even ground where we can now relate with each other. They're relating, right. And people sometimes don't want their kids to grow up. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the times that my kids were young, but I also I appreciate these times too.
Sure.
Like it almost like, oh, isn't it nice that we can, we're almost we're having an understanding of each other better now. Yeah. We're not as in I'm this and you're this down here. Mm-hmm. Now we're all figuring this out together,
right.
And it's just a part of it all. I guess I appreciate that process.
Absolutely. And hopefully they learn from that. And hopefully, we act like you say, tell your kids, don't be like me, and talk to your kids like they're human beings. Talk to them like they're kids, not down to them, but
on their level.
On their level. And man, that helps out so much. That helps out a lot.
Mr. Ben Berg.
Yeah.
You're a deep fellow, and I appreciate you. I hope this is one of many talks that we have. I've enjoyed our time.
Yeah.
Catching up together.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's a shame that we don't talk more often.
I agree. 100%.
I'm going to put that on you, though.
You know where I am.
I know.
And now you know where we are.
Right.
So so maybe we'll do this a lot more often. I got all kinds of stuff I want to get into about life with you, because I appreciate your perspective.
I was gonna say, man, that I had a lot more questions just for you. I was actually gonna interview you and figure out more on Milo and April here, and because I actually have a lot of questions.
Maybe we can,
like I said,
we'll do that sometime.
You've been my muse.
Well, man, I have nothing but love and respect for you, and like I say, whenever you're ready to throw your lot in with ours, that offer always stands.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, man. We'll do it soon.
Okay.
Thanks, April.
Yeah, April.